That's what I.
Oh, nice.
Gosh, that was good, wasn't it? Good evening and welcome everybody to this evening's Finance and General Purposes Committee meeting. Part one is public participation, and I do know that there's a member of public on Zoom. I don't know if anybody wishes to speak. No? Okay, we'll move on to the agenda. So the agenda, first off, number one is apologies for absence. I have not been offered any apologies for absence. I know Councillor Barnett must be on his way because he was on an email 20 minutes ago. So I'm sure he'll be with us imminently. Item number two on the agenda is to receive the minutes of the meeting held on the 14th of December 2023 and the 22nd of January 2024. This is for accuracy. I would like to propose those minutes. Please may I have a second.
I would like to second that.
Thank you, Vice Chair. I'd like to move forward to adopt those minutes. Anyone like to say anything before we adopt them? No? Move forward to adopt the minutes.
That's carried.
Thank you. Is the initial on this one? Thank you. Right, item number three. To receive any declarations of interest, are there any new declarations that are relate to the agenda this evening? Excellent. Swimmingly moving on then to Chairman's announcements. I'd like to advise following. So the old police station is nearing completion of sale. The clerk has been completing documents as to the correction of the land registry documents where a small error was discovered as to the plan which accompanied the deeds. This has resulted in needing to liaise with the tenant of the old courthouse, as although they no longer have a lease but a rolling lease, it is in the lease that remains paramount for the conditions, and the leases potentially give our tenants the right to walk in a corridor which is not in the old courthouse but in the police station. The police are picking up the costs of the solicitors, but this has also taken up a fair amount of time from the clerk. The council will also be asked to approve the affixing of the seal to the various amended documents. We have yet to be advised of the details of the new owners, although conversations to the access and maintenance of the drive need to be discussed once they take ownership. It is believed the completion date is hoped to be as soon as the 26th of March. So watch this space. This is for information as well. And obviously we've looked at the budget and agreed the budget, but just for information, the union's pay claim has been submitted to the employers. This is unison to the National Joint Council, which our officers are paid on the National Joint Council scheme. That in 2024-2025 opening submission from the union is one, an increase of at least £3,000 or 10%, whichever is the greater on all spinal column points. In addition, reviews of the gender, ethnicity and disability pay gaps in local government. Also a 2-hour reduction in the working week with no detriment. An additional day of annual leave for personnel or well-being purposes, or well-being purposes, with term time only staff also receiving a full day rather than pro rata amount that they can use at any time, including term time. That doesn't affect us here, but it's all part of the same. A phased approach to reaching a minimum pay rate of £15 an hour in a maximum of 2 years. The response from the employers is awaited, but this is unlikely to be agreed as this pay rise is now far above inflation. It should be noted that the percent in the budget for salary increase was mirrored for the last 2 years at an average of 6.4%. Additionally, for noting, a reduction of 2 hours in the working week for the full-time staff, based on 37 hours, would lose us the equivalent of 28 hours a week in productivity and may well put a strain on being able to meet current workloads. At this point, it is an initial offer, but it is worth pointing out these immediate results should the union's demands be met. That's quite a big difference. Having queried the invoice for 2023 elections received recently, we have been advised that we have not previously been invoiced for full staffing costs, that the ID requirements, increased equipment costs and postal votes having increased have added to the overall costs. We have now authorised payments. The increase was overall was over 73% since the 2019 election, to a value of £24,689.84, meaning that we'll be increasing the budget allocation next year to accommodate the 2027 bill, as the by-election will have an effect on the amount that is put away to date. Committee are also aware of the numerous FOI requests submitted over the last few weeks and the Council's decision to class the requester as vexatious. This has now been appealed to the Information Commissioner, and the Council will prepare to reply to this appeal if the IOC have advised further as to their questions and requirements. So that's my things to keep you up to date with what is going on. So a few things in there to mull over. So we'll move on now from Chairman's announcements to item 5, to receive a list of approved payments for December 2023, January 2024 and February 2024. I'd like to recommend that we approve those payments. May I have a second?
I'd like to second that.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Anyone got any questions on those? Yes, Councillor Bells, did you have your hand up? No? Councillor Wilson.
Thank you. Just a couple of questions, and I apologise for not having got my act together enough to go through it. I mean, just a few items. There was, I'm just trying to find it. There was in the second month, there was quite a big item. Was it
Oh, we're going through to those.
Are you going on to the?
Oh no, we can put that now.
No, January, yeah.
Yeah.
Where am I?
It's the second month.
In the second month, I think I'm in the second month, and the second. I generally, when I look at these things, I go by the large numbers down, and it was the MNC compound fencing that I'm not familiar with that. I just wondered what the M.
Oh, it's the M&M Services back to payment on the 19th of January. Is that what you're looking at?
No, it's MNC compound fencing, that's Mount Nobby Cemetery.
Right.
And that is the new fencing that's gone down to the cemetery down the road, just with regards to making the area much more secure.
Right. Okay. Right.
It was all planned into the works for last year.
Right. Okay. I just wondered on that.
This year.
I mean, there was a few other things. I smiled at cemetery broadband, but I assume that is to so that.
Probably too descriptive.
Yeah, okay, right. I just assumed that it was to do that, you know, whether there was the ability to actually, I guess, stream these events now. Is that, do we?
That I don't know.
Do we get that?
Cemetery broadband fees. Do you know what page that was on, what month?
Cemetery broadband fees,
Yeah.
that, right, okay, no. No, that's, again, that is, the CCTV and, the guys work down there as well. So just to allow them to,
Actually, yeah.
some of the things the outside services do is they use the devices and then they send information down to the district council and other places with regards to the work that we do. So they need to have broadband.
Maybe there's a business opportunity that you could.
We're
Well,
hoping and
streaming.
waiting to speak with them.
Streaming
Yeah,
such
but,
services might be
Streaming,
good.
that'd be interesting.
Yeah.
Streaming from graveside.
Mm.
I don't know anyone who does
Yeah.
that.
Yes.
I noticed snow shovels, which I also thought was quite interesting. But yeah, and the last item was we seem to have a lot of eye test policies.
Yeah.
Is that, are we?
We have a straightforward eye ITEST policy, which is a policy we should probably come back at some point. But the policy we have is that staff can have an eye test every 2 years.
So this is
because
paying for the test?
This is paying for the
In that case, I thought we were writing eye test policies.
No,
Right,
we have to
okay.
provide eye tests because they're all on the
Yeah,
screens.
sorry,
So
sorry.
it's every 2 years, staff can have the cost of an eye test, and if they have to have glasses in order to use the computers, then they can have up to £60 per pair of glasses. That's the most we do.
That doesn't go very far in Specsavers, I have to
It
tell
doesn't,
you.
no, it
Doesn't
doesn't.
go very
because
far anyway, glasses,
there's a lot of online
Thank you very much, sorry, new boy is
That's okay,
down there,
that's fine.
that's
Questions
all
are
that
always
is
welcome.
down there.
So can we move forward to accept those payments?
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, then we're moving on to item 7, which is the key performance indicators.
Sorry, Chair, are you
Am I
missing number
skipped
6?
one? Oh, I do beg your pardon. I do beg your pardon. I'm skipping through, because I'm using 2 papers. Thank you. Item 6 on the agenda, gosh. The town council's financial position. You will notice that there is a downward turn of about £200,000. This is in brief, there is a bigger statement that I'm going to get time card to read, but in brief, this is due to the purchase of Sunnyside, and the purchase of it is spread over 2 financial years. So one looks inflated and one looks deflated. Would you like the town council to read the statement that Dan's prepared? Thank you.
Yeah, just to explain to the committee chair that obviously Mr. Chambers would normally be with us this evening, but it is his birthday, so he asked for the evening off, which is why I'm left with some of the financial information that I've been well briefed, but I may not be able to answer every question. However, this was a conversation he and I had because we looked at the position statement, and I said, well, how come we're down over £200,000 this year on the balances? And I just wanted to be able to explain that. I was sure it was something that the council would want to know. And it is, as Chair just said, mostly due to the purchase of Sunnyside Farm. So the council's various accounts at February 23 was 1,300,000. This has decreased to 1,085,000. The total cash decrease is 221,000. All figures rounded to the nearest £1,000. The vast majority of this is due to the result of purchasing Sunnyside Farm. The purchase was 190,000, and that went through in May last year. And there was also the first year's public works loan borrowing repayment as well, which was 12,000. Therefore, before even allowing for any revenue expenditure at Sunnyside, the purchase of Sunnyside decreased our cash balances by 202,000. The Public Works Loan Board income of 95,000, the loan that they gave us, is not relevant to last year, as that money was received on the 20th of February 2023. So that explains why the 2023 figure perhaps looks slightly inflated, whereas then when you're looking at the current figure, it's down 200,000, but actually it's the 100,000, if you like, from Sunnyside that's the main difference there. So that's why.
Thank you. Yes.
May I ask, on the extracted summary, the income and expenses, the third item, Eastport Estate, has an adverse figure of 32,000. What does that relate to, please?
Johnny, that's the Sunnyside as well, the Sunnyside.
Is it, part of it is due to the expenditure at Sunnyside, also increased energy costs, and I'm also advised that that the East Grinstead play area equipment has also come out of that budget. There are a number of earmarked reserves which are going to be which will be used, which again will offset this. So at the end of the year, whilst we will have a large overspend, the earmarked reserves come into play, which actually means it's not quite that bad a position at all. And I have got a further statement from Mr. Chambers, which I think might explain that a little bit. So with regards to the forecasted year-end position, I would anticipate the general reserve balance being reduced by circa 42,000. Now, being as we were expecting a 95,000 general reserves move because of the purchase of Sunnyside, actually that's quite a significant improvement on the position we were expecting to be in. And that is basically because, the difference between the 200,000 and the 42 is the use of those earmarked reserves for all of those various different projects which we used last year. And I think this past year actually is a really good example as to why those earmarked reserves are there. When the projects come to fruition, it then makes all the difference and comes through. Thank you.
Thank you. Committee, is anyone, but yes.
Yes, thank
Absolutely.
you. Does that explain, Julie, that the year-to-date expenditure of 1.5, 9% greater? So that figure then is going to be, by come year end, that will be lower then, will it?
Wait, where are you?
At it says that the year-to-date expenditure is 1.5.
Which is 9% greater than total budget
Budgeted.
expected for the year.
Yes, I think is the answer in brief with that one, yes.
Okay, that's reassuring.
Yes.
Sure, you don't want me to read out all of this.
No, it's fine.
But yes, his comment here is, I think it's worth noting the council agreed 50% of the Sunnyside purchase was made using our general reserves balance, therefore a drop in the general fund of 42,000 is a really good result compared to the agreed drop of 95,000.
Thank you. And in terms of filling the general reserve fund next year, how does that work?
Well, that will be down to, I mean, obviously, we've made the budget for this year, and it will depend on what gets spent this year. And some items which we've budgeted for in the ENST committee is a very good example. We've increased that budget by 15,000 this year. If those projects don't come forward this year, that money will be going to be on reserves. But of course, so that will be my reserve, but your general reserves will basically be depending on where we are with regards to overspend or underspend as a generality next year. It's earmark reserves go off in one way, general reserves they pick up the slack. Yeah, the slack. Good word. Yes, so that's down to how prudent your officers can be and how fortunate and favourable things like energy prices and the like are. If we've budgeted to spend something and we don't end up spending it, we don't need to spend it, that will increase the general.
And hopefully energy prices, we should see the rebound in the fall for next year as well, so.
Yes.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sorry, Councillor Belsey and then Councillor Gibson. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. So looking at the variances and differences from projects, two of the biggest, one is an expense and one's an income, the sort of reasonable amount. So East Court Play Area was one, which is obviously where we had the to replace the equipment. I was just wondering whether we've got any particular concerns about the equipment there for any of the other items going forward.
The East Court equipment, I know we're waiting for an insurance payout to come back in from the expenses that we paid for replacing that. So that's in the budget at the moment, but we are waiting for a reimbursement from the insurance company on that. So that will change that slightly.
So that will improve the situation on that.
That's part of the money that Mr Chambers is expecting, and hopefully before the end of the year, that factors into his reduction to the 42.
We don't have a reserve for East Court Play equipment. It's something
You do?
We do.
You do. I'm not sure exactly how much in there at the moment. We can find out and let you know. But we have been spending it because we did replace one of the largest pieces of equipment a couple of years ago. But I think there's still a small reserve in there. It needs to grow if we're going to replace something else.
There is a reserve. It's incredibly expensive to play equipment. I don't think it can ever be understated how expensive it is. But obviously, it's such a huge resource over there. But unfortunately,
and it was very well received. I know when it was reopened.
Yes.
Okay, no, that's fine. But obviously, that causes a spike in
Yes, it does.
unless reimbursed. And then just on the positive side, miscellaneous income under Civic Pride, which was forecast at £650, actually nearly 12,000. And I just wondered.
That's something to do with. I think Mr Chambers might need to answer that. I've got a recollection. Was it to do with interest that was being made?
Oh, I think that's absolutely.
It's to do with interest that's being made on one of the loans. Because it's not that they're things that are making money.
Yes, if you're looking on at agenda item 6 and the table there, the corporate management favourable balance of 20,942, I'm advised that is largely because of the very well performing investment.
Yes.
Okay, I was looking under the P&L budget category 999, which is Civic Pride, specifically the code 1201.
I think it is that.
That is
it
that.
does.
Okay. Do you know what month it is?
actual year to date compared to budget, that was all. It's just a positive, very nice, but I wouldn't be surprised.
There is interest being earned this year, that's a
Thank you very
significant
much.
interest being earned.
Thank you.
I'm pretty sure it's that,
Yeah.
Councillor Gibson, I know you had your,
Yes, it was just, I mean, obviously there are, if you like, there are set limits to where we're allowed to allow the general reserve to drop to. And obviously,
Yeah.
one of the things that worries me about that is the way that inflation is carrying the revenue budget figure upwards. And that, of course, has a knock-on effect on the need to support general reserves. So you end up chasing your tail almost if you're not careful. But I assume the clerk would let us know if we had issues with that. My question is really about S106 and just maximising the use of S106. I've also just learned that you can insure play equipment, which I hadn't come across before as a council activity, so that's good. I'll pass that on elsewhere. I mean, just perhaps the clerk just say a bit about S106 and particularly in the context of the forthcoming district plan to make sure that we are covering all the bases, or indeed, if it's not too late with the things like the Imberhorn Farm development, that we're going to see sufficient monies coming into the town centre for that.
Well, we would hope so. The Section 106 funds, we are asked, when the plans come forward, we are asked by the District Council what we would like to see placed on them. We have obviously given a list of various different areas we would like to see investment to come through from any of the planning applications that come through. We've not been specifically involved in the Imberhorn Farm I can't think of the phrase, the general community, the general community Section 106 that comes forward. Section 106, as you all know,
The local
is a
community
very-
infrastructure.
Thank you, that's the phrase, the local community infrastructure, that's the, we've not been specifically consulted on that as to what our thoughts would be around that one, but we have sent in a general list of things that we would like to see investment in the town. Councillors Odie and Pond did a very detailed piece of work, talking with the Section 106 officers at the planning officers at the District Council, again going through areas where there are potential pots of money available and looking to see if they potentially can be reallocated where we know that we've got needs. That was something that the leader of the district asked us to look at, which we did. We haven't heard anything further from that, but we sent in our thoughts and ideas, and we did have a few questions about some of the pots which were quite old and seem to, and we understand that these are very often really tied up in strange legal binding agreements, and trying to unpick them is difficult, but we know that that's what the district are trying to do in certain areas, so we've tried to do that. So yes, we have certainly made aware of things that we would like to see invested in the town. We're very aware of the infrastructure plan that the District Council already has, obviously, which lists out where they're putting things and what they're intending to do. So I think we're quite confident that where we can influence it on that local levy, we'll be able to do so. But of course, it's the bigger issues that unfortunately are unlikely, I think, to be directly attended to by the Section 6 that comes through. We know we've got problems with GP surgeries, health centres and what have you. We know we're looking at school places with very, and of course those are not issues that this town council will have the influence over.
But there is, of course, I never know what the A stands for, but it's total something demand, which is to deal with travel, which sits, is it total access? Total access demand. And it always strikes me that the county grabs that, but it should really be available for everyone to bid into, particularly with our sort of objectives to expand active travel around the area. Total access demand. It's very much worth keeping an eye on it. I have certainly found that it's been very difficult to get any monies repurposed. That developers have the opportunity to take the money back after a certain time has expired. Usually they don't ask for it, But certainly, I think, you know, given the current state of the construction industry, it would, you know, I think that there's one or two areas in which the council is shy of asking the developer if they would mind it being spent on something else.
Right, thank you, councillor. That was actually brought to the committee, I don't know if it was the last meeting or the meeting before, explaining that section 106 and about the time limit on it.
The only thing I'd add, Chair, is about TAD payments, and as councillors mentioned them.
Yeah.
We were made aware that the district council actually holds some of these from the way that the system used to work, but they've still got some old payments that haven't been used, so there is still some TAD. I think there's a lot, but there is still some TAD left available.
I think what I'm pressing for is that rather than have this money in bank accounts, we should be trying to get it out into the community
Yeah.
and delivering the projects that people want. So I think that's the key thing.
Thank you, councillor Gibson. Councillor Whitaker.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just on that particular point, there was a very, very good annual report that the district council published and issued, which I think I copied to the clerk, and I think it went to all, certainly the planning council, about the section 106 contributions, money received, collected, spent, and a complete reconciliation and report, which the district council are legally obliged to do. I think that was issued in January. I'll recirculate it.
Thank you, that was really helpful, thank you. Right, are there any more questions on the current financial position? Welcome, councillor Bonnet. Okay, so, I can ask the committee to note that.
Noted.
Thank you. Now, item 7 on the agenda, after I could have done a massive faux pas skipping over 6. The performance indicators, to receive the report from the KPIs for invoices and absences, along with staffing updates. So has anybody got anything to say? Everything's going the right way, absences are down. Payments within the 30 days are pretty steady, so I'd like the committee to note that. Noted. Thank you. Right. Now, item agenda 8 is recommendations from committee. There is nothing from A&T this time around, which is quite unusual. There's a big one coming from the Public Services Committee, and Alice was keen for this to go through, and she has produced a report for the papers, which we've all had. She did a small presentation to the public services, and she was asked to do more detail to present to FNGP, which you'll find in your papers today, with costs and everything for the project, to engage a youth, to start a youth club, really, and to engage a part-time youth worker to run the youth club. There are implications to the budget next year, as the £3,500 will need to be to raise approximately from 3,500 to 10,000 if the council wishes to employ staff. There is funding for this year, but if the grants are not obtained, it will hit the budget going forward. I know Rex was dealing with this. I've looked at the proposal in detail, as I'm sure all of you have. I personally am very keen to see something for the youth, and I looked at the costings and everything. What I'm not so keen on is to add more employment to the school, which hat am I wearing tonight? I'm watering hats this week. To the council, and I can see the necessity of it at present, but it does put a burden on the budget moving forward. I've looked at it, and I think for a year to see how it goes, etc., I would think of putting staff on a temporary fixed term contract, but that is my personal opinion. I'm going to pass it over to Councillor Whitaker. It's his committee to move it forward in discussion this evening.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, this, as you said, came up, was presented by Alice at the Public Services Committee a few weeks ago. A very, very passionate report, together with the lady from Hansford, the town clerk will remind me, Sasha Brown, equally passionate. Really, they've been clearly working very, very closely together. This is obviously in the demise of the Sussex clubs for young people. You know, it's since the Wallet, you know, in the background, so this is the Wallet Centre closed effectively 10 years ago, before it, you know, unfortunately burnt down, and since then really nothing's been to replace it. I spoke with Alice this morning. presentation was superb at Public Services, so we, you know, that committee unanimously said in principle, we'd like to refer it to you and this committee, subject to costing, subject to budget, subject to contracts, etc., which we're doing. And I spoke with Alice this morning. I think it's worth saying, and Councillor Gibson will be far more aware than I am about the success of Worth Parish Council, who have had an initiative for a year. I think they've employed full time. It sounds a really good chat, all 30 hours a week, and that's apparently going from strength to strength. You know, in the numbers of the youth that in the age range, I think it's 11 to 14, or that range, or maybe slightly younger.
Catching slightly younger here.
Yeah, I think it's the objective is to catch them slightly younger rather than older. So Councillor Gibson obviously is very au fait with the Worth situation.
I mean, just a couple of points on that. I mean, yes, I fully support the idea of it being contract to start with. That's what Worth did last year. I mean, they moved very quickly, and they also, of course, took over the old purple bus as well. So there's a sizable bill going through the Worth Parish Council accounts now, covering the cost of full employment for the youth worker. And it is being successful. I mean, we're seeing groups of 20 or so on, and certainly I'm told there's queues at the door.
And 2 locations, I understand.
2 locations, I mean, covering both Crawley Down and Copthorne. My understanding is that the older group did not work very well, so the focus is the younger group, which I think is something like 8 to 11. It's of that order.
Excuse me, I think this one at the moment, it says here that the group would be youth group for year 7+ would be at Sunnyside, which is age 11, which is going to hit secondary school, end of primary school, into secondary school.
And again, sorry, John, speaking to Alice, thank you, Councillor. Speaking to Alice, she said that transition from primary school to secondary school is when you want to try and, you know, nurture and transition, you know, the youth at that, you know, sensitive time. So thank you for looking at it in detail. I do hope the committee, you know, feel that they could support it. I agree with the temporary sort of nature and the review sort of periods only 6 months, you know, at least. You know, the proof will be in the pudding either way, I think, fairly quickly.
Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Stelsey.
No, I 100% support this. I am on the committee of the Air Cadet Corps, which is actually almost opposite to Sunnyside Farm, and we recently had an open day, and I think we got something like 30 new people of this sort of age. So there's obviously a need for these sort of bodies, and I think this is absolutely great. The only thing I would say is obviously the support and funding from the East Grinstead Town Council, but I am aware there are a lot of funding available from various sources. So I would, and I'm sure Alice or whoever would be looking at possible funding, but I think that there is a lot available for youth support. But otherwise, I'm 100% behind it.
Thank you, Councillor Odie.
Yes, thanks, Chair. My only couple of comments. One was grants. Thank you. Thanks, Margaret, for stealing my thunder. When I read the report, I was thinking, because it is all about transition, and my thoughts were year 6 would be the starting year group, I think, because it's just a great way for them to then introduce themselves to future secondary school friends and units really of people. So that's my only comment. I think it's a great idea. It would be very welcomed.
Thank you.
So just one further point to add, is speaking again to Alice this morning, she already has identified 8 to 10 sort of parents, that adults that are keen to become involved, obviously subject to the usual checks and DBS and that stuff, but you know, already, you know, it's a snowball that's growing.
I'd like to say one more thing before I've got a proposal out, and I'll come to you, Councillor Dudley. I just want to point out 2 things. One, I said about the salaries and taking it on, and B, you know, cost implications saying Sunnyside there is no cost. Well, there is still financial implication because you're not going to be able to rent it out somewhere else. So let's be quite clear about that. And on grants, we just need to be quite clear again of who will be supporting it and doing it, and who's going to take ownership of it. From own experience of getting grants, you can be limited on what you can and where you can go if you're already with a body. So if that already becomes under the town council, what our budget is and everything can affect that grant making process. So I think it would be wise to support it and then maybe let it flourish with our support behind it moving forward. It will probably give it more chance of being able to get more grants and more success on its own. That's just a thought from experience. Councillor Belty.
Thank you, Chairman. I would only just say I've had some involvement with the Asheswood Youth Club, and these things also go a little bit in cycles. So sometimes they're more popular than others. It depends on the year group how keen they all are to support these things. But when there's been a year where it's been a bit quieter, the following year the numbers have sort of bounced back up. So I don't think we should worry unduly in the first period just about those numbers and fluctuations, because I think that's just part of the natural cycle.
Thank you. Yes, thank you. Right, so I'm going to move forward to a proposal for the committee. So I would like to propose that we accept the costings and taking the position as stated in the proposal from Alice, and the personnel to be taken on with a commitment of a year on a temporary contract with a fixed term to be reviewed in 6 months' time. Please may I have a second for that proposal?
I'd like to second that proposal.
Any more comments on that? Councillor Odie?
Yeah, sorry, Chair, why 6 months? Because the setup is not going to be finished by then, will it? It's saying
It says
open
when
in
it's,
September.
when it starts, 6 months
Oh, from
after it
6 months
starts.
from September. Okay, fine. Thank you.
Thank you for clarifying that, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Okay, can we move to a vote? Thank you.
It's carried.
Alice will be very happy. So will hopefully the younger elements of our community. So that makes me happy. Right, item 9 is delegated decisions. There are actually none to bring forward today.
There was one in the report, Chair, so if we could just
Yes.
explain to everybody that we actually reported that at the last meeting. My apologies.
So it didn't need reporting again today. So that one is actually for ignoring stuff. Okay,
I'm almost sort of just struck by that. So yes, sorry, Chairman. Just out of interest, do we know how much the old police house sold for in the end?
We don't know anything. We don't know who it's sold to. We don't know what the costs were at all. Hopefully, once the completion takes place, we might actually hear a little bit more. But I don't even know who.
I think that's very sad, especially as the council made a very viable offer for it, I think.
indeed, and we kept channels very open and communication open with them, and we'd hoped they'd be frank and open with us, but that has not been the case. So. Item 10 on the agenda. This is a nice one, everybody. Right. Policy review. Some of the council's policies have not been reviewed for some time and have been updated to reflect current legislation and procedures. Committee will be asked to approve the new and updated policies. Some are new, some reviewed, or some given a major overhaul. There are more to come forward in the next cycle or two, so this is only the first tranche. But they can take a lot of time bringing them together, so we're doing it in sections and having them scheduled for regular reviews to be proposed to bring forward in future. I would like to propose that we take all 13 en masse. However, there is one amendment that I would like to make in my recommendation to take them, and that is on the communications and publicity policy, section 8.3. would like to be changed to: councillors should be mindful of using the prefix councillor when writing to the press. They should be clear in their correspondence as to whether they are writing as to their view as ward councillor or stating the council's policy. It should also be clear as to which council they are writing on behalf of. Open bracket, if the councillor represents more than one council, close bracket. I would like to propose them all 13 with that amendment to that particular policy. I'd like to actually go to Councillor Barnett for seconding that because he proposed the amendment. Councillor Barnett.
Yes, indeed. happy to second that.
Right, can we, okay,
But
so
there
we'll-
are issues I have with two of the policies. so
Okay.
I'll come back to that.
okay, fine. So. I'm now throwing up for discussion, if there's any other comments made on other policies. So, councillor Barnett, thank you, if you could tell me,
Yeah,
discuss.
okay. If I go back to which one it was, I might get away from this, go back to the email.
Do you want to put 2 hard copies?
I've got hard copies of all, councillor Barnett, if you need them.
So go and find my emails rather than anything else. So yes, lone working policy. Yes, lone working policy. I emailed town clerk and said I would go and have a reread, which I have indeed done. There is one part which still bothers me, and that is that we basically specify that we should ensure that anyone working alone within the EGTC building, possibly assumed to be this one, should have access to a mobile phone. When actually staff working on their own, caretaker or whatever, attending Sunnyside Bar and attending somewhere else, are probably far more at risk lone working than someone working here. So perhaps we ought to have a mobile phone accessible for anyone working alone, subject to what you.
Can you just tell me where that is?
It's the 7th bullet point for 6.1.
Something like that, yeah.
Right, on that page. I think we'll just take out in the EGTC building.
Or any EGTC
And that
building.
will say, ensure
Well,
that
it's-
anyone lone
It's
working.
maybe in or outside. A caretaker is probably more vulnerable than
I mean,
somebody working in an office.
The policy obviously refers to East Grinstead Town Council and our staff.
Yes.
So. I
Yes,
think
that
if we-
side of it is
Yes, I
fine.
think if you took out the
Yeah.
EGTC building, so,
Yeah.
and say ensure that any lone working,
Yeah, have
ensure that
access.
anyone lone working always have access to a mobile phone.
Yeah.
I think that's the word.
Yes,
as a
yeah,
bullet. So
absolutely.
that's a removal of the words in the EGTC building
Yeah.
on 6.1.
Yeah. So that's one.
So
amendment
can we just,
proposed, yeah.
can I propose,
Yeah.
on top of the original proposal, if I can just propose this amendment and add it to the proposal? Or do we need to add it in at the end if you want?
I think what we'll do now is you've got your substantive,
Yeah.
so what we'll do is we'll take each amendment individually, and then we can then put them all in at the
Okay.
end. So
Yeah, that's fine.
if you
Um,
propose and second on this particular amendment, we can move on from that one.
That's fine, that's what I
Okay.
wanted to do, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So I would like to propose
Yeah.
that the lone working policy, section 6.1, bullet point 7, we amend the wording to say ensure that anyone lone working always has access to a functioning mobile phone. Please may I have a second for that motion? Thank you, councillor Barnett.
And all in favour.
And all in favour of that motion? Thank you. Right,
And
councillor Barnett.
the
next
additional
point.
one
Yes,
is
please.
the use of computers, email, social media and
Okay.
internet policy. And it's 7.1. Towards the tail end of 7.1,
Yeah,
it says, councils must not conduct themselves in a way detrimental, blah, blah, blah. And use their council email address when registering on any such website, that's fine. Or provide any link to the town council's website. Now, it seems pretty basic to me that the most easy way for a councillor, or indeed a member of staff, to help a member of the public is to point them in the direction of the town council's website. So actually, barring someone providing a link to the town council's website seems entirely counterproductive.
what, can you just, did you say it's 7.1?
I can't
Very
see it.
I can't see it.
The very end, further, maybe it's.
Maybe it's not 7.1.
maybe it's my copying this, maybe it's 7.3 or something, I don't know. It's lost the formatting.
Users may also be security conscious when using social networking websites and should take appropriate steps to protect themselves.
No,
That's not the one.
it's a section which ends or provide any link to the town council's website.
Yeah, it's here.
And that is the part which is the problem really, because it's in 7,
Right.
not far down, because I copied, unfortunately, all the
yeah.
text.
You are, yeah, it's 7.1, bullet point 2.
Right,
Use their town council email address when registering on such sites or provide any link to town council's website.
it's that last part, or provide any link to the town council's website, which seems
I don't think that's referring
somewhat
to
bizarre.
when you're dealing with residents. or anything.
Yeah,
I don't know. It's-
it maybe needs a bit of word working on it. I think what that's referring to is when you set yourself up on an account, putting a direct link to the town council's website in your profile. That's what it's talking about. Because you may well want to, when you're talking about
Yeah.
something, say, oh, there's a.
Doesn't quite what it,
I understand what you're saying, so
yeah,
please, if I might try,
yeah,
town clerk. So use your council email address when registering on social media platforms,
yeah, that's.
is what you're
that's
asking
fine.
for, isn't it? On social media platforms, or provide a link to the town council website. And you need something after that, you need something about full. Is what you,
I think councillor Barnes is asking to take it out.
Yeah, take it out, because I
what,
don't see what,
just town council
So
website?
finish
provide a
it
link to the town council
with
website.
use the council email address when registering on such
I mean-
sites and ended there.
I
And
think
why
I-
restrict, yeah.
I don't think it's needed, because I don't do, when you register, I don't register on social media, so for me.
No, I can see
I
not
don't
using
think
the
I have
town
to register
council
a
email.
website, so you could just take it
Yeah.
out.
I mean, you don't use you use your own emails and the rest of it, but
Because you just do it with an email, you just do it with an email address when you register.
yeah, you
Please
don't.
remember, this is not just councillors, this is staff as well.
Well, yes,
I just want to be sure that that doesn't create a problem. I can't think that it does, I'm just trying to run it through my head.
One
If
of
you're
the-
setting up an official social media page for the council, it will ask you for a website address. So if there's
It will.
so the Instagram account for the town council, that
Well,
would
then
have
it
to
needs to
have
stay
a
in there.
website address.
Yes, but
Yeah, that would be
that's not an individual officer who's
No.
setting that up, although
No.
somebody's
So,
setting up, they're doing it on behalf of the
Right.
council. This is much more talking about you
Personally.
I know some people, rather strangely, I think, who use their work emails to set up their social media presence and other such things.
yeah.
Right,
And that's
That
not
really
allowed.
should not be
Yeah.
done.
no,
No, the bit about
That's
emails,
what
I
this is
understand,
about.
absolutely,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's what
absolutely.
that's about. I think the proposal is to put a full stop after the word
Sites,
sites.
yes.
I think that's what the proposal is. If there's a second for that,
Yeah.
vote for
Right,
amendment.
so I would like to make an amendment to, Councillor Gibbs, did you have something to say before I finish?
Yeah, I'm a bit concerned by this one, because it seems as, I mean, certainly as currently phrased, and I contravene this on about 100 times a week. Because certainly I post links to relevant documents, for instance, on the West Sussex website.
Talk
where I'm
about setting up, let's talk about setting up the account, not while you're typing out and saying the information in the body of it. Talk about setting up your profile.
So in terms of setting up the profile, that's all you're interested in. That it
This
is-
particular item, setting
Right,
up
then
the
I can read.
profile.
if you wanted
Is
to
it
set up a
specific?
councillor Ian Gibson LinkedIn account,
Yeah,
Is it specific to just?
so
setting up
I'm
a
more worried
profile?
about the other way around, which,
Yeah.
okay, if you're all,
They're not talking
If
about that,
it's
that's
the other
not
way
what
around
this
is
is about.
fine in that case.
If
Right,
it's
okay.
specific to setting up a profile, then that's fine, but
Hmm. No, yeah,
is it that
I think
specific?
you're okay now that we've taken that bit out.
yeah,
So in your writing, your body of sharing information, you put the link where the information
Yeah.
can be found,
Yeah.
that's acceptable, they're talking about setting up your profile. And that's the difference. Am I correct in your interpretation? And
I'm just thinking it should be encouraged rather than discouraged, basically, providing, because it's the easiest way for the town council to provide information is say, here it is.
So we've
There you
taken
go.
it, so we've taken it out, so it doesn't say that.
Right, well, okay, for instance, if you've got a LinkedIn account in which you would reference being a member of East Grinstead Town Council,
Yes,
that's no,
yes,
that does not provide a link, and
That's
therefore
not a link, that's talking about,
that's
that's about
okay.
the role that you play.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah, you just wouldn't be able to
not
set
that I have
up,
a LinkedIn address.
you wouldn't be able to set up LinkedIn with your town council address.
Yes, I understand that, right, okay, I've got that now, I was
Yes,
labouring under the
Yeah.
problem that it was
Okay.
actually outgoing, where I point people in directions of
Yes,
websites,
no,
and encourage people to write to me on the right address,
yeah,
so I
that's what we
can deal
want to
with
do.
things,
That's
yes.
what we're
Yeah.
encouraging.
But I do
Right,
that within the body,
so I'd
but
like
I'm
to propose
content.
an amendment now to the use of computers, email, social media and internet policy to 7.1 bullet point 2, to turn that to use their council email address when registering on such sites, full stop. I'd like to propose that, may I have a second? Thank you, councillor Barnett, may I take a vote on that? Thank you. Right, are there any other comments anyone would make about the other policies? Right, so we've done a proposal on those, I've had a second, can we move to the vote on the rest of the policies? To accept them, thank you,
I think that's carried, Chair.
thank you. Right. Moving on to item 11, which is the pensions discretion. Now, this is a policy, and this is on its own an agenda item. It's a new policy that is actually a mandatory policy. So we really should have had this in place before. So to approve a set of pensions discretions as necessary, the local government pension scheme requires pensions discretions to be adopted by an employer. Our officers are all part of the local government pension scheme. I do need to mention that. The recommendations from the officers are to ensure that the council is not unwittingly open to a large financial liability, while recognising that the council is a large employer and that some of the provisions which are commonplace in district and borough councils are appropriate to at least be considered by this council on a case-by-case basis. The report outlines the discretions. Again, it must be stressed that while the council can amend the recommendations, a position on the mandatory discretions as a minimum needs to be adopted by the council as per the requirements of the local government pension scheme. So I would like to propose the policy. Please may I have a second?
I will second that.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Well, I'll open now for discussion. I do know that extra information was shared with you all yesterday on this to explain the needs to have this in. We are actually on task to get this in at the right time. There's quite a lot of very small parish councils have got these in already, and the bigger councils have got them in. There's quite a lot slipping through the net. I don't want this council to be one of those councils. Open floor, anyone would like to say anything? No? Okay, I'm gonna, yes,
Can I just,
Councillor.
yeah, thank you for the additional information, Town Clerk, that's very useful. Can I just ask, I mean, I don't, I'm far more experienced around the people around the table than me on this particular issue, but can I just ask very simply, when you say mandatory, have we got to do it? If we don't do it, what happens? Are we more at risk with this policy or less at risk without the policy,
I
financially?
think we're more at risk without
We are
it.
required to have a position on the mandatory discretions. The local government pension scheme requires its members to have a position on these first 5. They recommend that you have a position on the next 8 as well. There are more, but these are the ones that are recommended, well, mandatory and then recommended that we have a policy on. Not to have a policy at all could mean the local government pension scheme assumes that we have therefore accepted them all because we haven't considered them, and we could end up finding ourselves with quite a big bill if somebody were to go down that particular route. It's not been tested as far as I know, but it is a worrying position. We certainly are likely to get an unfavourable comment from our auditors if we haven't put this in place when they actually pick it up, that it's not there and they come to us to look at them. We have been asked by the Hampshire County Council, who deal with the local government pension for West Sussex, we have been asked where are our pension discretions. We are required to be letting them know about them, so that if we have, because what we have to remember is that not everybody who leaves East Grinstead Town Council claims their pension straight away. Sometimes those people come along years later, and so of course when they are then making their claim to Hampshire County Council for the West Sussex scheme, they are the Hampshire are then looking to see what applies, and they're wanting to know. So they apply the regulatory part of the scheme, and then you've got these discretions, and they want to know what our position is on them. Are we doing them or are we not? The recommendations in bold from the officers, and Mr. Chambers and I have been going through this for quite some time, trying to work out what they mean, what the implications are, and then being able to bring this forward. And we were very keen that we got this in. It's something we've been putting off or chewing over, and eventually said, no, we must bring this in this time. So on almost every case, we are suggesting a case-by-case basis, rather than putting the council into a position whereby, yes, we will definitely do this, or no, we will definitely not. So that it does give you the discretion. And as I've said at the end of the report, in almost every case, the council, and actually in every case, the council is going to, there are a few that are not, but they don't have financial implications. Where there's a financial implication, the council will be the ones making the decision, yes or no, as to whether or not these policies are being used, or the extent of the policy as to how it's being used. We looked at what some of the big authorities do, and we used some of their ones as far as possible. We've looked to see what the parishes are doing, and again, we look to try to take what we think is an even ground. We're not a tiny parish. We have got 22 staff members, so it's reasonable that we have a certain amount of ability to do things, which is, I guess, what this does for us. It gives us the ability to do things, but as I said, and I promise you, on every case, it will come back to council, and council will be the ones making a decision. The ones where you would not will be where we have definitely said we will not be doing that, and even where we've, if you take the big one, which I suppose is the 85-year rule, that has to be agreed by council that you are going to be using that scheme, even though you've said, yes, you will adopt it. It still has to be an independent decision of this council every time it would be used.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody? Yes, Councillor Odie.
Sorry, just to clarify, does the council have to have funds set aside for this?
No. What we do is we pay into the we pay into the pool, we pay into the pension pot, and so a lot of that, obviously all that goes in. If we were to then apply a discretion, which would mean that we were making a payment, an extra payment on behalf of an individual officer into then we would need to use that from our reserves. I don't think, we can have a look at it, we can consider it further. I don't think it would be something that we would set a reserve aside for, because it could be a number of years before it ever came up. Yeah. And the purpose of reserves, that they're supposed to be there to be used for a specific project, not just for when the day comes.
Yeah.
We have general reserves. You're not talking huge amounts of money if you were to be using the large parts of this. So it would be a case of, I don't think this council would have any difficulty in being able to comfortably make a decision where they felt it was right, and then still have prudent and appropriate financial reserves.
Thanks for the clarification, Julie.
Yeah, I think it's important to, within the council, it's important to know that the non-discretionary ones, it comes back to the councillors to look for the office, as I say, case by case basis, as I mentioned in my notes, so that it's not something that we're forced into each time, because if this discretionary policy would be needed, it would be some sort of emergency for that particular member of staff, so therefore it would then have to come to the pay panel or some such, and it may never be used. But the point is, if we don't have it, we're not protected. Thank you, Councillor Gibson.
This is clearly a very complex area. We're in fact seeing today that the government is, of course, struggling over the, sort of its setting of the retirement age for females as well, and historically, in the way that they've moved that around and all the rest of it. I mean, I think there is risk to the council in this, particularly are we in a triennial review of the pension pot, which can actually bring a sizable sum, if the pot is not in surplus.
I think ours is annual. Rather than triennial.
Annual rather than triennial.
I could be wrong, but I think it's annual.
Mid Sussex was triennial, that was just why I
Well,
said
it's all
triennial.
part of the same scheme, so maybe it is triennial, but I do know that the last time it was reviewed, which I thought was only a year ago, I could be wrong, time flies, that actually we found out that we had paid more in than we needed to. Our pot was looking good. We pay in based on our individual employees at that particular point in time, so we pay the percentage in. I think it's 22%, I could be wrong, but I think something like that. So we pay that in, but of course not everybody claims all of the pot that you put in, because unfortunately not everybody, no one lives forever, but not everybody gets a pensionable age, and there's reasons why these things change. So our pot was actually in a very good position last time that we had. I'm sure it was only a year ago, but I can get Mr. Chambers to double check that. Things change. It's not that long ago that we were then they did have to change they had to up the amount we were paying in. That was about 3 or 4 years ago. But since then we have had actually we're okay. But I can get Mr. Chambers is the one who goes to the pension meeting, so I can ask him to put in something together and circulate so that you all know where we are.
So it's a complex area, and it can obviously catch you out if
Absolutely.
you're not. And just as a supplementary within that, the concept of retirement age, which I think is now very difficult, because you cannot obviously insist that someone retires at retirement age. Just where does that leave us with the liabilities? Do we then stop having to pay into the pension fund, or?
Oh, I can't remember this. I should know this.
That's where you are way above my level of knowledge about the
right.
pensions. This is one of the questions we're actually waiting.
I believe if they're paying,
to
you have to continue to pay it. They can stop, and I think we are still obliged to pay.
But I think there's all types of rules around the pension, and I think, and I could be wrong, but I've got a feeling you can't pay in for more than 40 years. And actually, if you have a member of staff who's been in the pension scheme for a large number of years, they may potentially get to a point where they stop. They're still making their payments in, which is fine, but it's not actually then making any difference. So that's everything that we then pay in is adding to the pool rather than adding to that individual's pension pot. But as I said, this is where things get very murky with my knowledge. I am by no means a pension expert, but we are asking more questions, partly so that we're 100% sure that we have understood all of this. And if anything comes up that actually we've maybe got something wrong here, or we think there's something else we need to know, we will bring it back. We will bring it back. This is,
it needs to be correct.
But no policy is written on the wall forever. No. They can be changed. So we think what we've done here is what we need to do. We believe that to be correct.
I know you've been talking about it for a long time. Yeah. We've talked about it for I think a few months. It's been coming back to the table. So I do know that the officers worked really hard, and I've just tried to take it on board. So I've got a question. I've had a second. So please may I have a vote to adopt that? Thank you.
That's carried.
And the reassurance that it will come back if there are any significant changes. It will come back to the committee. Thank you. Right. Another one for a little bit of spending. Item 12 on the agenda is to talk about the recommendation to approve additional signage to the council surgeries Councillor Hughes made some requests for additional signage and assistance to the identification of councillors. You've got those within the report, and to propose, so before I propose those, I would, I lost my piece of paper, to look at the value, thank you, I've lost it in amongst everything else. So the costings are to have a high vis jacket, it's £10 each. To have a stand, for a two-way stand that can be read, that's self-standing, that's £140 each. I'm only talking in net, I'm not going to talk about that. And then also there was to have an extra banner to put on the front of the gazebo saying surgery. That would be a total cost of £520. I believe that to be excessive spending. I am quite happy to put a signage to say the surgery and spend £60 on the banner, and even one of the signs, so that it calls to people to us. So I'm going to say, I'm going to give you my recommendation, see what's in the report. I'm going to recommend that we spend, that we get one of the double-sided stands and the banner, that will cost about £200, because obviously we've still got to transport everything there. Please may I have a second for that so we can discuss. Thank you, Councillor Whittaker on that one. Yeah. I'm going to throw it out there now. So would anyone like to say anything? Because obviously the initial thought would be to spend more. Councillor Odie.
Yeah, 520. I'm struggling to go. Is it 32 vests we need? Is that?
There was two. They wanted two of the standalones. One saying one thing, one saying that there'd be each end Queen's Walk. That would be 280.
Oh, I see. Okay.
There'd be two of those, and then there would be the banner for about 60, and then working on about £10 a head, so that each council would have their own high vis, and it would say councillor on it. Whereas if we wear them now for any event, they actually say volunteer. Although we practically volunteer to do the wrong, it's slightly, you know, it says the wrong thing. So that's where the 520 came from. Thank you, Councillor Gibson.
From having done this once, what I would observe is that the positioning of the marquee means that it would be beneficial to have the signage on the sides as people walking towards it, rather than on the front.
This is why we talk about a new banner. They would actually say surgery on it, so that people would see that.
But this
As they come down.
is this something which is going in the adding to the side of the marquee
Yes.
or something like that?
That's something easy to do when you set up. That's a setting up issue.
Right,
That's a setting up issue.
So you
It's separate.
It's a setting up issue. Yeah, this is
Okay.
this is on top of that. Any other question? Yes, Councillor Benson.
Thank you, Chairman. Just, so we're saying to get one pavement sign and it's got one side of it says East Grinstead Town Council and the other one says talk to your councillor today, is that right? Or you
With
just-
the wording can be decided.
Okay.
I think the wording could be decided. But it could be having one rather than two. The idea one would have talk to your councillor on both sides, one would say, you know, East Grinstead Town Council on both sides, but anybody else? No? Okay, should we move to a vote to have one stand and one banner?
Can I just ask, sorry? It's a bit along what Councillor Gibson's just said. It already says East Grinstead Town Council on the top of the marquee anyway. I
Yeah.
just sort of, in a way, those sale banners are a bit more visible for people walking backwards and forwards. You won't see it until the back, I don't know, I'm just not helpful.
Right, I'm going to change my proposal, okay? I'm going to change my proposal that we spend £200 to decide on the best promotional material to promote the surgeries.
Fine.
Please may I have a second for that?
Thank you. Second.
Thank you, Councillor Spelling. So let's vote on £200 to spend on publicity.
I'm
for
not
our
sure that
surgeries.
was the correct procedure, Clark.
Neither am I, councillor. You had a motion on the table.
We had a motion on the table.
You
We
do
have to vote.
vote on that.
Oh, sorry, so we
If you-
vote on,
We have to vote against that one.
so shall we,
vote
can we
against
please
that.
have a vote for buying one banner and one stand sign, please?
Can I suggest that I move an amendment?
Oh, you can
Yes,
do that.
please.
I move an amendment to the original motion, which
Why did you
is
say
that
that?
it should be whatever you said, 200. And then that would actually fit within the correct procedure, I think.
So you amended it to do what? To just spend up to £200 on it, whatever we think is £200.
Yes, yes.
So, that's been proposed, that needs to be
So
seconded.
would somebody like to second?
And if you'd like to vote on the amendment, lovely, and now you can vote on the substantive, which is now simply a case of,
Amendment.
This is the amendment.
Yes.
Whether you vote on the.
There we go.
We've got-
200 for whatever is most appropriate.
Yes. Wording to be decided.
It's got to be on the side
All right. I need to get your minutes down. Thank you so much, Town Clerk. Thank you, Councillor Gibson. And thank you, I think that's the right report. I think the promotion will be great. It's the right amount of money. So moving on to item 13 on the agenda, and that's for a council working group. This is to approve the setting up of a new working group to look into pedestrianisation. I'd like to propose the terms of reference, which you will have circulated on your table this evening, and along with the membership for that working group. So the terms of reference for the shared services working group.
It's underneath your pad. It's on the table.
Got the one.
One is to investigate the feasibility of pedestrianisation in the town centre to include purpose and goals of pedestrianisation, roads affected, business logistics, public transport access, paving and surfaces. And 2, recommend studies as needed and commission them. And 3, form proposals and submit
Community highway schemes.
community highway schemes or other proposals to West Sussex County Council. That's part 1. And 2, the members are suggested to be Councillor Whitaker, Councillor Gibson, Graham Russell, who is the CEO of East Grinstead Business Association, Charlie Martell, who is a member of East Grinstead Business Association. The ex officio will be the chair and the vice chair of the Environmental and Sustainable Travel Committee. And an officer will also be allocated to the group from the clerk's office. I would like to propose these standing orders and the committee members. Please may I have a second? Thank you, Councillor Whitaker. Any questions? Councillor Darcy.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm only just reading this just now, so a few things just from this. Recommend studies as needed and commission them. Who do the recommendations from the working group go to? Do they come to Finance General?
They go to the Environmental and Sustainable Travel Committee.
Okay,
Because they carry
They carry the funds to carry the projects out.
okay. How often are the members of the working group to be should we say?
Rejuvenated, changed.
Yeah, exactly. Should it not be reviewed annually or something like that? Or are we happy with naming councillors as opposed to sort of positions or, chairs of this, that and the other?
Thank you, please.
Thank you.
all our working groups are reviewed annually.
Okay.
So this one will actually be reconstituted in June,
Okay.
Following the annual town meeting in May. And obviously the membership can be considered at that time. And the chair and vice chair of the parent committee are always ex officio, so they're not required to attend, but obviously they can do so. All decisions will have to be referred to the parent committee, and that will include the request to spend the budget, which is under the ENST.
Okay, thank you. Could I just also ask, so an officer will be allocated to the group from the clerk's office.
Yeah.
Is that a voting member of the committee?
No.
Of the working group? No? So they're
They're simply there to assist with the work of the working group. It'll either be myself or the deputy clerk,
Okay.
depending on who's got the most time.
Are the chair and vice chair of Environmental and Sustainable Travel Committee, are they voting members if they are there?
Yes.
They are.
Yes.
Okay, because I'm very keen that if we have a working group, that the majority of members of the group are also members of the town councils, so
That's 4 out of
that will
6.
be 4 out of 6 if they're voting. And are we happy from a stakeholder perspective? Obviously, that's 2 members of the East Grinstead Business Association. No, there are no other stakeholders like the high street traders or other people like that involved, should we be expanding it more widely?
I'm going to say one thing, and then I'm going to pass over to Councillor Whittaker on this, and then after that, I know Councillor Barnett would like to say something. So for me, it's got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
So we start it and then see where it takes us, and it may well need more members, but even if we're going to bring in more outside stakeholders,
Yeah, of
to
course.
increase the amount of
Yeah,
councillors to balance it
I
out.
completely get it.
So I think we've got to start.
Okay.
We've got to start, get some foundations to move on. There is all some groundwork already being done. Let's be honest about that. Something has been done already, so that it needs to move forward. Councillor Whittaker.
But you want to bring in Councillor Barnett?
Yes, of course.
Mine's the question, looking at the terms of reference, they come up with the recommendations, submit them to West Sussex County Council. Where does the town council fall in this decision-making process?
Well, what they do first has to come to the Environmental and Sustainable Travel Committee first, so it goes through the council first before it goes any further. They don't take it straight to West Sussex.
This working group can't make any decisions themselves, so whilst
Yeah.
they're the ones who will be saying, these are the CIHs or whatever we wish to do,
Yeah,
that has to be approved by ENST,
right.
who are A, putting the funds in, and B, they are the parent committee.
Yeah.
No working group can do that
No.
on their own.
Okay.
Councillor Odey had something before we
Thank
come
you.
to Councillor Whittaker.
Sorry, was councillor Barnett, are you referring it to come to full council? Is that just because it's such a big decision? Is that what you're
I
referring
think
to?
in terms of
Well,
2.3, it says West
Yeah.
Sussex.
Yeah, I mean, if if a significant proposal is come forward, then probably it would be appropriate for town council as a whole to, depends what the output of the group is, isn't it,
That
really?
would be a gift to
Depends.
ENST to refer it onwards if they felt it was
Yeah.
significant, yes.
Sorry,
Councillor Odey.
I just wanted
Yeah,
you to clarify
yeah.
that. Can I just clarify a couple of things, Chair, if you don't mind?
Yes, of course.
Originally, the proposal for pedestrianisation or shared surfaces, spaces, whatever it is, was for London Road. This says town centre. Can you just clarify what that's going to include? I'm sure Councillor Whittaker will be able to clarify that. The other thing as well is I've got worries about funding and budgets. So, there isn't a bottomless pit of budget.
No.
And there's other things that need to come out of that budget as well next
Yes.
year too. So I'm just
Yes.
concerned.
Can I just say that we did budget, we allocated in our budget for 24-25 for £10,000 for this.
Right,
So it does have some funds.
okay,
That budget was actually increased by £15,000 for your committee, but there was a conversation around 10,000 being specifically for the work on the pedestrianisation. Yeah.
okay.
But that remains in the gift of your parent committee to decide how much and what you want to spend.
Yeah, no, that's fine. And I just wondered, John touched on it a second ago. What's the councillor stakeholder ratio for a working group? What's the ratio it has to be? How many councillors are there?
We don't have one.
Oh, you don't? Oh, that's fine.
It needs to be on a working group.
Okay,
Because it's a working group, not.
yeah, so you could just have one councillor and it could be
Committee.
8 stakeholders almost.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
get them to do.
Absolutely. Just because it's a working group from the council, it needs to have balance, that's all, which it
Right.
does have with Councillor Whittaker, Councillor Gibson.
Before I go to
Thank
Councillor
you.
Whittaker, because I know that he's going to look at leading this, Councillor Mrs. Darcy.
It just really, an awful lot of work has been done by particularly West Sussex over the years,
Yes.
and they've undertaken it. Are we starting from a fresh piece of paper, or are we taking into account the work that has been done by the various councils here to?
Thank you for pointing that out. Yes, I'm going to pass it over now, bearing in mind that question. I'm going to pass it
Chairman,
over
that is
to.
perfect timing. Councillor
There we
Mrs.
go.
Darcy. You can see that this documentation, so this is a leaflet from September 1999. This is the East Grinstead Courier copy from 1983. Okay, so what goes around comes around sometimes. So, Councillor Mrs. Belch is exactly right. An awful lot of work has been done by previous administrations of this town council, in conjunction with other administrations, namely West Sussex County Council. So the whole purpose of this is to look at it again with a fresh, but and this information has been given to me by the Martell family.
Yep.
Principally Roger. through Charlie, you know, it's very, very interesting to, you know, I'll make this available to all council members. I would stress this is a town council-led initiative, okay? So it goes through all of the town council, the working group goes to the Sustainability Committee, then that obviously reports to full council, you know, at approval of decisions, minutes, etc. in the normal course of events. And so I would like to call it shared services rather than pedestrianisation. That word, it's a very Marmite subject. When we last approached this, when we started our neighbourhood plan in 2012, as the town clerk is nodding, and you know, we have some painful memories of when we did survey work, etc. You know, it's this is a Marmite subject. Shared services is now the more modern euphemism, because that encompasses a lot of nuances in literally what it says, sharing services, and what you can do subtly with different services for different functions. So it's a working group. It's, as the leader said, it's a start. I do know that Mr. Graham Russell from EGBA has got quite a lot of previous experience in his professional life, in his the consultancy that he's involved with. They've got staff members that are involved or have got case studies, or you know, so a lot of information. So they've got a lot of knowledge on this. So, and it's independent, external to the council, but we're using that knowledge and a lot of it pro bono, because yeah, exactly. I'm aware of budget constraints. Clearly, we're all aware of budget constraints. So I would like to get it off the ground. It might come to absolutely nothing, but I'd like to see where it goes, and then sort of take it from there. Really. Very happy to be guided by all members. This is not my project or the GDA's project. It's just something. It encompasses sustainable travel. It encompasses planning issues, highways issues. Clearly, the county council will be key if this does progress. The county council and our contacts in the county council are going to be key. I think it's interesting. I mean, we've all seen examples in other locations and villages, towns, particularly, where it can work very well. Other areas where it doesn't work, and it would involve a huge consensus, exercise. We're aware of that, but if you don't try, you don't get it. So I would ask if we could get it set up and then just see where it goes.
Thank you, Councillor Whittaker. Councillor Mrs. Busby.
No, I absolutely agree with what Councillor Whittaker has said. I just think that obviously Councillor Gibson is the highways really need to be represented, because it is such an important factor within this decision.
Can I just say that I think some of it needs to start to see if actually there's an appetite for it.
Yes.
I certainly there's an appetite with EGB and other members, but is there an appetite with our community? And then that's when you start, I think, going to the. But I think there was some initial conversations being had, I think, potentially with the highways and things like that. I'm sure Councillor Whittaker will be on that with the town clerk, or indeed one of the officers that may get appointed to that role. Councillor Gibson.
I was going to make the point that this is an awful lot of county council land, highways land, and clearly there are rules and issues to do with highways land and all the rest of it, and that means that there would early engagement would be. Otherwise, you could do a lot which would not actually. It would not be done that. Yes. And then there's also, and in fact, I'm running a written question on it for tomorrow at County Council on what is happening with the corridor study in terms of the way that traffic is supposed to be moved into the village centre, into the town centre in future. But the main observation I've got about this is that this has to start with a vision, right? So that would be the thing that I would say, is that we need that whoever is doing this needs to sit down and hammer out a vision to start with, because visions drive everything else. I've worked on a comparable scheme for the Crawley Down Village Centre, and you pretty soon discover that you trip into things like having to convince the bus company not allowing them to drive down routes that they've driven down for ages becomes a stumbling block quite quickly. So that would be I mean, it need to be amended to this, but it's just to obviously observe that would be item 1 on the agenda. What is the vision for this?
Thank you, Councillor Gibbon, that's a good point well made, and you were saying the same thing, so, and Town Clerk, did I actually put a proposal out? I don't think I did.
No, I don't think you have. I think we've just chatted. I'm not sure that you've actually.
So, I would like to propose that we accept the terms of reference for the shared services working group, and that we also accept the members as written down, and obviously that would come through to cycle in June. Please may I have a second for that? Thank you, Councillor Whitaker. May we move forward to the vote?
Carried.
Thank you. Right.
Should be interesting. The cooling down scheme sits in abeyance.
No. You just put here. Ask
The number of things like changing.
All right, so, can I just,
allotments into car parking.
thank you, committee, I'd just like to thank you all for your attendance this evening. That brings us to conclusion to tonight's meeting, and the time is 8:25.
Thank you very much.